I still remember that night clearly. My phone buzzed with a new message, just another text, I thought. But when I opened it, everything changed. In that one moment, the world I had trusted, the love I had believed in, and the person I thought I knew all of it began to fall apart. It is strange how a few words on a screen can turn your entire life upside down. My name is Emily. I always believed that love, when genuine, is supposed to feel safe. It is not about grand gestures or expensive gifts. It is about the small things. The way someone texts you goodnight, the random memes they send you in the middle of the day, the way they ask how your morning was even when they already know the answer. That kind of attention feels like a warm blanket on a cold night. And that is exactly how my relationship felt. Safe, steady, honest. At least that is what I thought. For almost 2 years, my boyfriend and I were inseparable. We had our ups and downs like every couple, but nothing ever felt wrong enough to shake the foundation we built. I trusted him, fully. Maybe that was my mistake. Not because trust is wrong, but because sometimes we trust the wrong people with the most fragile parts of ourselves. It all started one random Thursday afternoon. I remember that day vividly. The sky was dull and gray, and I was at my sister's apartment helping her pack boxes for her move. I was tired, my hands covered in dust, when my phone buzzed. It was a message from him. I cannot stop thinking about last night. I miss you already. At first I smiled. For a split second I felt that flutter in my chest. The one you get when someone you love says something sweet unexpectedly. But then something hit me. I had not seen him the previous night. In fact, I had been with my sister the entire day and night, surrounded by cardboard boxes and half-eaten pizza. I stared at the screen, waiting for a follow-up message that would make sense. Maybe it was an inside joke? Maybe he meant something else? I typed back slowly, last night? Within seconds, the message was gone. He had unsent it. But it was too late. I had already seen it. Then another message came. Haha, wrong chat. Meant to send that to my friend? I read that line over and over again. My stomach dropped. Who texts their friend that they cannot stop thinking about last night and that they miss them already? It was absurd, but part of me wanted to believe him. That is what love does to you. It makes you want to explain away the very signs that should wake you up. For the rest of the evening, I tried to focus on helping my sister. I laughed at her jokes, taped boxes, and kept my phone face down on the counter. But my heart was somewhere else. That text kept replaying in my mind, word for word, tone for tone. Later that night, when I got home, I called him. He answered casually, like nothing had happened. Hey, babe, he said. How was your day? I forced a smile through my voice. It was fine. Just busy. You? Same. Work was crazy, he replied. I am exhausted. I wanted to ask right then, to throw that message into the middle of our conversation and watch what truth would crawl out. But I hesitated. Maybe I was wrong. Maybe there really was some innocent explanation. I did not want to sound paranoid. But my gut would not stay quiet. The next few days, things felt off. His responses were shorter. He seemed distracted, his phone always face down, his smile not reaching his eyes anymore. It was as if something invisible had built a wall between us, and he was standing on the other side of it. By Sunday, I could not take it anymore. I decided to confront him. We met at our usual cafe, the one where he had asked me to be his girlfriend almost 2 years ago. I arrived early just to gather my thoughts. I remember the smell of coffee beans and cinnamon filling the air. I remember how heavy my chest felt as I waited, staring at the empty chair in front of me. When he finally walked in, I noticed the guilt before he even sat down. His eyes darted everywhere but at me. Hey, he said quietly. I smiled weakly. Hey. There was silence for a few moments. the kind that feels like static in the air. Then I took a deep breath. "I saw your message," I said. "The one you unsent." He froze. For a second, he tried to act confused. "What message?" "The one that said, 'I cannot stop thinking about last night.'" His face went pale. His hands started fidgeting. I knew. I did not need any more proof, but I wanted him to say it, to hear the truth from his own mouth. Finally, he exhaled and whispered, "I messed up." That was all it took. 2 words and everything we had built shattered in an instant. He confessed that he had been seeing someone else, a girl from his gym. He said it just happened, that he did not mean to hurt me. The usual lines people use when they have already destroyed something precious. But then came the twist I never expected. The girl he was seeing thought I was the side person. She believed she was his girlfriend. He had been lying to both of us. I remember sitting there, my hands around my coffee cup, trying to make sense of the storm inside me. There was anger, yes, but also a strange calm. I did not cry. I just looked at him and realized that I was done. We ended it right there. 2 days later, I met that girl. We decided to talk. Not to fight, not to blame, but to understand. She showed me screenshots. I showed her the wrong chat message. And then, surprisingly, we both laughed. Not because any of it was funny, but because sometimes pain becomes too heavy to cry over. We ordered dessert together. It was a quiet kind of healing. 2 strangers connected by the same betrayal, finding strength in knowing that neither of us was alone. When I went home that night, I blocked him. And for the first time in a long time, I felt something I had not felt before. Peace. There was pain, of course. There always is when you lose someone you loved. But beneath that pain, there was clarity. A sense that maybe this ending was not a punishment. It was protection. And that realization, that was the beginning of my healing. It had been a week since I blocked him. 7 days of silence. 7 mornings without his messages. 7 nights without that familiar good night text that used to make my world feel calm. You would think I would feel free after cutting him off. And I did, in a way. But freedom, I have learned, is not always light. Sometimes it feels heavy before it starts to heal you. I spent those days focusing on small things, cleaning my apartment, visiting my sister, taking walks without checking my phone every few minutes. I was trying to remind myself what it felt like to exist outside of someone else's attention. Then one evening, as I was making tea, I heard a soft knock on my door. It was him. He stood there, holding a single rose in his hand, eyes red like he had not slept for days. For a moment I froze. 100 memories flashed before my eyes. The laughter, the road trips, the lazy Sundays spent watching movies. But then, just as quickly, came the memory of that message. The one that shattered everything. "Emily," he said quietly, "please just hear me out." I sighed and stepped aside, letting him in. Not because I wanted to, but because I needed closure. We sat on opposite sides of the couch. The air was heavy, filled with words waiting to be said. He spoke first. "I made a mistake," he said. "A huge one. I do not even know why I did what I did. It was stupid, it was selfish, and I hate myself for it." I stared at him. "Do you hate yourself because you hurt me, or because you got caught?" He lowered his head. "Because I hurt you. You did not deserve that, Emily." There was silence again. He looked smaller somehow, like the guilt had taken away all the confidence he used to wear so easily. "Why her?" I asked finally. My voice did not tremble. It surprised me how calm I was. What did she have that I did not? He looked up, his eyes wet. Nothing. It was not about her. It was about me being stupid, wanting attention, thinking I could handle 2 lives at once. I do not even know who that person was anymore. I shook my head slowly. "You do not get to say that. You were that person. You made that choice. You lied to both of us. He reached forward, trying to hold my hand, but I pulled away. Emily, please, he whispered. I miss you. I cannot sleep. I cannot eat. I keep thinking about what I lost. About you. I looked at him, the man I once thought was my forever. The one who made me laugh until I cried. The one who promised he would never hurt me. And yet, here we were. You did not lose me, you gave me up, I said softly. There is a difference. He opened his mouth, but I continued. You had me. You had someone who loved you, trusted you, believed in you, and you decided to throw that away for a secret you could not even be proud of. He covered his face with his hands. I know, I am sorry. I will spend the rest of my life trying to make it right. I took a deep breath. You cannot fix this. Some things do not break, they dissolve. What we had is gone, and no amount of I am sorry can bring it back. There was a long pause. Then he said something I did not expect. She broke up with me too, he murmured. After that night with you, she said she could not trust me anymore. She said if I could lie to you, I could lie to her too. I almost smiled at the irony. Looks like honesty came late for both of us. He nodded slowly. I deserve that. We sat there in silence. The clock ticked softly in the background. He looked around my apartment, the photos on the wall, the little plants I had started taking care of, the small traces of a life I was rebuilding. I remember when we bought that vase, he said, pointing at the blue ceramic one on the table. You said it reminded you of the ocean. I nodded. It still does. But now it reminds me that even the calmest seas can hide storms. He closed his eyes for a moment, as if trying to hold back tears. Then he stood up slowly. I will go, he said. I just wanted you to know that I am sorry. Truly sorry. I walked him to the door. He turned one last time, hoping for something. Maybe forgiveness. Maybe a sign that I would change my mind. But I had nothing left to give. I hope you find peace, I said. But it will not be with me. He nodded and left. When the door closed, I leaned against it and exhaled deeply. There were no tears, just quiet. And in that quiet, I felt something shift. Forgiveness, I realized, is not about letting someone back into your life. It is about freeing yourself from the weight of their actions. And at that moment, I forgave him, not for him, but for myself. Later that night, I received one last message from an unknown number. It was him again. I will always love you, Emily. I hope someday you can forgive me. I did not reply, because sometimes silence is the loudest answer. After he left that evening, I thought the hardest part was over. I thought that once the door closed, the pain would slowly fade away, like a storm that leaves behind a quiet sky. For a while, it did. I began filling my days with purpose. I threw myself into work, took on new projects, joined a book club, even started painting again, something I had stopped doing years ago. I spent weekends with my sister and long evenings with friends who reminded me how laughter feels when it is genuine. For the first time in months, I was beginning to feel like myself again. But healing, I have learned, is rarely a straight line. One night, as I was getting ready for bed, my phone buzzed. I picked it up, expecting a text from my sister. It was not her. It was an unknown number. The message read, "Please forgive me, Emily. I think about you every day." My heart sank. I did not need to ask who it was. I stared at the message for a long time, the blue light of my phone painting the walls around me in cold shades. I locked the screen and put the phone away. I did not respond. The next night, another message came. You were the best thing that ever happened to me. I made a mistake. And the next night, I cannot sleep. I keep hearing your voice in my head. Every night, the same pattern. Every message started with please, ended with forgive me. At first, I ignored them. I even tried to convince myself that he would stop once he realized I was not responding. But he did not. The messages kept coming, sometimes long, sometimes just one sentence. Sometimes they arrived late, close to midnight, when the world was quiet and my thoughts were soft enough to be disturbed. I saw your photo on your sister's story. You look happy. I am glad. I just wish it was me beside you. That one hurt the most. I blocked the number. The next night, the messages returned, from a different number. You can block me, but I will still love you. It felt invasive, almost haunting. Not in a dangerous way, but in a way that reminded me how the past sometimes refuses to let go, even when you do. I tried to stay calm. I told myself that he was struggling with guilt, that this was his way of trying to fix something that could not be fixed. But deep down, I also knew that every message he sent was keeping me tied to a version of myself that no longer existed. So I began a new routine. Before bed, I would silence my phone and place it face down on the nightstand. I would light a candle, close my eyes, and repeat to myself, "You are free now. You are allowed to move on." Some nights, it worked. Some nights, it did not. Then one morning, I woke up to find a message that simply said, "I am outside. I just want to talk." My heart stopped. I jumped out of bed and went straight to the window, but the street was empty. It was early, the sun just beginning to rise, and there was no one there. Maybe it was a bluff, or maybe he had actually come and left. I would never know. That was the day I changed my number. I informed my friends and family, updated my contacts, and for a few peaceful days, there was silence again. I began to breathe easier. The weight on my chest began to lift. But on the fifth night, a message appeared on my new number. "You can change your number, but you cannot erase what we had." I remember sitting on my bed, staring at the words, feeling a strange mix of sadness and exhaustion. I was not angry, not anymore, just tired. It felt like he was stuck in a loop, replaying our story in his mind, refusing to accept that it had ended. And maybe that was his punishment, living with a memory he could never relive. I blocked the number again. That night, I could not sleep. I sat by my window, looking at the quiet street below, thinking about how love can become a kind of ghost, not something that haunts houses, but something that haunts people. He was not dangerous. He was just lost. And I had no intention of joining him there. A few days later, I decided to write him an email. Not to send it, just to write it. It began with, "I forgive you." But forgiveness does not mean return. You broke something that cannot be repaired. I hope you find peace, but I hope you stop looking for it in me. When I finished writing, I deleted it. I did not need to send it. The words had done their job. After that night, the messages started to fade. They became less frequent, then stopped entirely. Maybe he finally realized that silence can sometimes be more powerful than words. Weeks passed. I continued to rebuild my life, slowly, quietly, beautifully. I started running in the mornings, reading poetry again, smiling at strangers without feeling the weight of old memories behind my eyes. And then, one evening, while scrolling through my phone, I noticed something I had not seen in a long time. The absence of fear. No new messages. No lingering shadows. Just peace. I realized something important that night. Healing is not about forgetting someone. It is about remembering yourself. Because when someone keeps saying, "Please forgive me," what they truly mean is, "Please keep thinking of me." But I had already learned how to think of myself again. It had been almost 2 months since the last message. 2 months of quiet mornings, peaceful nights, and a kind of healing that finally began to feel real. I was not the same person anymore. I could laugh without pretending. I could look at old pictures and feel gratitude instead of pain. That Saturday morning, my sister and I decided to visit a small coffee bar near her office. A cozy place with wooden tables, soft jazz music, and the smell of roasted beans that somehow made you feel safe. We ordered caramel lattes and a slice of chocolate cake to share. The place was filled with chatter, laughter, and the gentle sound of coffee cups touching saucers. For the first time in a while, life felt normal, beautifully, simply normal. Then I saw him. He was standing near the entrance, holding his phone, scanning the room like he was looking for someone. For a moment, I thought my mind was playing tricks on me, but no, it was really him. The same familiar face, the same tired eyes, though he looked thinner, older, almost weighed down by something unseen. Our eyes met. For a brief second, time froze. The sound of music and laughter faded, and it was just us, two people with 1,000 unsaid words between them. He hesitated, then slowly walked toward our table. My sister noticed the change in my expression and turned to look. Her face tightened slightly, but she stayed calm. "Do you want me to—" she began softly. Before I could answer, he spoke. His voice was quiet but steady. "Emily, can I talk to you for a minute?" My sister looked at me and then at him. She understood. She always did. "I will sit over there," she said gently, pointing toward a table by the window. "Take your time," I nodded. "Thank you." As she walked away, I felt my pulse quicken. My hands trembled slightly around my cup. He sat down across from me, and for a few seconds, neither of us said anything. Finally, he broke the silence. "You look good," he said softly. "Better, actually," I smiled faintly. "Thank you." He took a deep breath. "I know I should not have come. I needed to see you. One last time, if you will let me." I looked down at the table, tracing the rim of my coffee cup with my finger. "Why now?" "Because I could not live with the way things ended," he said. "I tried to move on, Emily, but I could not. Everything reminds me of you. Every song, every place. I thought the messages would make me feel better, but they only made me realize how much I broke you. And myself." His voice cracked slightly, and I could see tears forming in his eyes. "I did not just lose you," he continued. "I lost the best version of myself, the version I was when I was with you." I looked at him, really looked, not as the man who betrayed me, but as someone who was human, deeply flawed, and genuinely remorseful. There was no arrogance left in him, no excuses. Just quiet regret. "I hurt you in ways I can never undo," he said. "But I want you to know that I learned. I am not asking for you to come back. I just want to apologize in person, not through a message, not through a screen. You deserve that." For a long moment I said nothing. My eyes stung, and I blinked quickly, trying to hold the tears back. Part of me wanted to stay cold, to remind him that sorry was too small a word for the damage he had done. But another part, the part that once loved him deeply, felt the heaviness in his voice, the honesty in his eyes. "I wanted to hate you," I whispered, "for so long. I wanted to wake up every day and convince myself you were the worst thing that ever happened to me." He looked up, pain in his eyes. And I could not," I said quietly, "because hating you would mean I am still tied to you. I wanted peace, not revenge." He nodded slowly, his hands clasped together on the table. I understand. For a moment there was silence again. The kind of silence that does not need to be filled. Then he spoke again, his voice trembling slightly. Emily, I still love you. I know it means nothing now, but I had to say it. The words hit me harder than I expected. I felt my throat tighten, my chest grow heavy. I wanted to tell him to stop, to let me go, to leave me in peace. But I could not. Because somewhere deep down, a small voice whispered, "What if people can change?" I pushed that thought away, but it stayed. He reached across the table slowly, not to touch me, but to place something there. A small folded note. I wrote this weeks ago, he said. You do not have to read it. I just wanted you to have it. I looked at the paper, unsure what to do. He stood up. I should go, he said quietly. Thank you for giving me this moment. I watched him walk away, the bell over the cafe door chiming softly as he stepped outside. For a long time I sat there staring at that note. My sister returned and sat beside me, her eyes full of concern. Are you all right? She asked gently. I nodded slowly. Yes, just surprised. Do you want to leave? She asked. I shook my head. No, not yet. We sat in silence for a while. She sipped her coffee and I stared out the window, watching him disappear into the crowd outside. Inside my heart, something began to shift again. Not the old pain, not the old longing, but something quieter. A question. Should I give him another chance? I did not say it out loud. I did not even tell my sister. But as I folded the small note and slipped it into my bag, I knew that the answer, whatever it was, would come in its own time. Because sometimes, the hardest part of healing is not letting go. It is deciding whether to open your heart again when it once bled. When I reached home that evening, the world outside was quiet. That kind of calm that comes after a storm. My sister and I walked in together, neither of us saying much during the drive. The silence between us was not heavy. It was thoughtful, almost protective. As soon as we entered the house, she placed her purse on the table and turned to me. Emily, she said softly, do you want to talk about what happened? I hesitated for a moment and then nodded. Yes. We sat on the couch with 2 cups of tea. The air smelled of chamomile and rain. She waited patiently as I tried to gather my thoughts. I saw him. I began quietly. At the coffee bar. He came over, asked to talk. He said he was sorry, again, but it felt different this time. He looked broken. My sister listened carefully, her eyes kind. What did he say? That he could not live with the way things ended. That he regrets everything. He said he does not expect me to take him back, but he needed me to know that he had changed. She leaned back, processing my words. And how did you feel? I looked down at my hands. I do not know. Part of me was angry that he had the courage to face me now, when it was too late. But another part? I paused, searching for the right words. Another part saw something real in his eyes, something that reminded me of who he used to be, before all the lies. My sister nodded slowly. Sometimes people change when they lose what they never thought they would. I sighed. Do you think I should give him another chance? She looked at me for a long moment. Emily, only you can decide that. But I will say this. Forgiveness does not always mean weakness. Sometimes it is the bravest thing a person can do. If you truly believe he has changed, maybe you can let him prove it. Her words settled into my heart like soft rain on dry soil. That night, I could not sleep. I sat by the window with the note he had left me at the cafe. My hands trembled slightly as I unfolded it. The handwriting was shaky, but the words were steady. I know I cannot undo what I did. I know sorry will never be enough. But I promise that the man I am today will spend every day proving that he learned from the man I was. If love ever finds its way back to me through you, I will never take it for granted again. I read the note 3 times. By the 3rd time, the ink began to blur behind my tears. Something inside me softened, not out of weakness, but out of understanding. Because love, when it is real, does not always end when people break. Sometimes, it pauses, waiting for both hearts to grow strong enough to hold it again. The next morning I called him. My voice shook slightly as I said his name. He sounded surprised, almost breathless. "Emily, are you all right?" "Yes," I said. "Can we meet?" We met at the same cafe where everything had ended once, and where something new had quietly begun again. He arrived early, waiting nervously, his hands clasped together on the table. When I walked in, his eyes lit up, but he stayed seated, respectful, unsure. "Thank you for coming," he said softly. I sat across from him. For a while, neither of us spoke. The sunlight streamed through the window, falling between us like a bridge waiting to be crossed. "I read your note," I said finally. He swallowed hard. "I meant every word." "I know," I replied, "and I believe you." His eyes widened slightly, not in relief but in disbelief, as if he did not think forgiveness was still possible. "But belief," I continued, "is only the beginning. Trust takes time. If we try again, it has to be different. No lies, no secrets. Just honesty, even when it hurts." He nodded quickly. "I promise. I will never hide anything again. I will spend every day proving that I am not the same person who broke your heart." His voice trembled, but there was truth in it. Not the desperate kind that comes from guilt, but the kind that grows from growth and regret. For the first time in months, I smiled genuinely. "Then maybe," I said softly, "we can start again, slowly." He exhaled shakily, as if he had been holding his breath for years. "Thank you, Emily. You have no idea what this means to me." We talked for hours about what had gone wrong, what we had learned, and who we wanted to become. There were tears, there were long pauses, and there were moments of laughter that felt fragile, but real. As the cafe lights dimmed and the world outside turned golden with evening, he reached across the table and held my hand. It felt different, this time. Steadier, quieter, grounded in truth instead of illusion. "Emily," he said, his voice low and sincere, "I will never stop being grateful for this second chance." I looked at him, my eyes soft but certain. "Do not thank me yet. Just keep becoming the man I believed you could be." He nodded. "I will." When we stepped outside, the air was cool and filled with the scent of rain. He turned to me, hesitant, but hopeful. "Can I walk you home?" he asked. I smiled faintly. "Yes." We walked side by side, not as the same people, who had once fallen apart, but as two souls trying to rebuild something with patience and truth. At my doorstep, we stopped. The streetlight cast a soft glow on his face. He took a deep breath and said, "I do not know what the future holds, but I know this. I will never take you for granted again. I promise to walk beside you, not ahead, not behind. I felt tears fill my eyes again, not from pain this time, but from peace. I promise too, I whispered, to walk with you, not against you, to forgive, to grow, and to never forget what we learned. We stood there for a moment. Under the quiet night sky, two people who had broken, rebuilt, and chosen each other again, not because they had to, but because they still believed in the possibility of love that heals. And as we finally embraced, I realized that sometimes hopeful endings are not about finding someone new. Sometimes they are about rediscovering someone who finally learned how to love you right. If you believe in second chances and stories that heal, do not forget to like, share, and subscribe to Hopeful Endings.